Let me call the quarterly meeting of the Tennessee Board of Regents to order. And as part of that, let me first thank all of those who have attended, who have come to attend the meeting today. As I normally do, and that is give a reminder to all of our participants and our board members that, as you are aware, our meetings are webcasts for the benefit of the citizens of Tennessee who cannot be here in presence to participate in the meetings. I do want to extend on behalf of, I guess I will say, the board and administration, realizing that this is Good Friday. At the time we set the calendar of events, we did not pay particular attention to that, but I do appreciate all of you attending, notwithstanding that, and again, apologize for that, and I'm quite sure a number of you, like myself, will be waiting for us to get this meeting over so you can get back home to family for the Easter break, but as you do that, drive safely. We've had a lot of activities for the benefit of the audience. The board did engage in our annual or actually biannual retreat. We were in meetings all day yesterday. The governor participated in over half of the session yesterday. We had Dr. Joe DiPietro, as well as Randy Boyd, and a number of other state and individuals who are interested in higher education, which is going to be a major focus of the governor over the next 2 years. And my hat is off to my colleagues sitting around this table, as well as to the administrative team who helped to put that together for us. A lot of information was dispersed, and we engaged in, some general conversations about where we're going in the immediate future as we try and align the incentives around the Complete College 2010 Act that is focused on completion and how we will achieve the governor's broader goal of the drive to 55. And so I say that to let you know that we have been working and will continue to work on manifesting the goals of this governor and those of this board to ensure that we are providing the best product possible to the students in the communities here in Tennessee. So having said that, I will turn to the Chancellor for any opening comments that he might have prior to presuming with the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I would also just share my appreciation to the members of the board for a hard day of work yesterday, but I think a very good day of work as we think about the future. And I would just share with everybody here that, Good Friday, I can't think of a better way to spend a Good Friday than with this group of people.
That's right. Remember, we hired.
There's a couple of things. I'll be very brief here, and I'll have a chance in a few minutes to say a couple of other things. But I do want to recognize a couple of people who are here with us for the first time. And President Glenda Glover from Tennessee State University is with us. This is her first meeting. Make her welcome, if you would. Dr. Glover is doing a great job at TSU, and I'm proud to have been part of the process that brought her to us. And I'd also like to recognize Dr. David Rudd, who is the stand up, David. You're also welcome here. David is the new provost at the new provost at the University of Memphis. So we very much look forward to working with you as we go forward. One other thing, Mr. Chairman, I just would like to acknowledge, because I'll forget to do this later if I don't do it now, but Sanja, Phyllis, Jonah, and Matthew all really helped us a great deal to pull off the last couple of days, and I very much appreciate the work that they did for the retreat, and it was because of them that everything worked right, that the logistics were right. So with that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chancellor. At this time, I would call on our Secretary and General Counsel, Mary Moody, to call the roll.
Regent Copeland. Here. Regent Duckett.
Here.
Regent Ferris.
Here.
Regent Griscom.
Here.
Regent Humphrey.
Here.
Regent Kisber.
Here.
Regent Montgomery.
Here.
Regent Raines.
Here.
Regent Reynolds.
Here.
Regent Rhoda.
Here.
Regent Roddy.
Here.
Regent Thomas.
Here.
Regent Varlin.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the December 13th, 2012 regular quarterly board meeting. Board members have been provided copies of those minutes. Does anyone have any changes or corrections to those minutes?
I'll move approval.
It has been moved by Regent Ferris approval. Is there a second? Second by Regent Kisber. Any discussion? Hearing none, this item can be approved by voice vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposes, the same sign.
Chairman,
Yes.
could we at least acknowledge that Commissioner Huffman is here, so that for our recorded votes, he is shown as having been here and voting with us?
That was my mistake, Chairman.
Yes, and I missed that. And good catch, Regent Griscom. I apologize. I was checking off numbers as we were calling the names, and I apologize for Commissioner and Regent Huffman. The next item on the agenda is the report of interim action since our last board meeting, and I will call on Chancellor Morgan for that report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The report of interim action, I believe, was shared with you in your materials that you got last week. It outlines the business transacted by the Chancellor's office since our last quarterly meeting of the board. I believe the matters therein are routine kinds of transactions. And pending any questions, Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that the board approve the report of interim action.
So moved. Second.
It has been moved by Regent Thomas, second by Regent Roddy. Any discussion on the, hearing none, all in favor of approval of the interim actions signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposes, the same sign. Motion is approved. Report of the committees. You have minutes from the following committees has been provided. Unless anyone opposes and would like to vote on the minutes of those committees individually, we will act on the following minutes jointly. Those minutes being the minutes of the Finance and Business Operations Committee on February 7th and February 28th, as well as the minutes of the Audit Committee, which occurred on March 12th, 2013. Does anyone want to vote separately on those, or?
I'll move approval. Second.
It was approved. Motion was made by Regent Ferris, seconded by Regent Griscom. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposes, the same sign. Minutes are approved. Now we come to the Regents Award for Excellence in Philanthropy, and I will call on Regent Reynolds for a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's always a pleasure to highlight our Regents Award for Excellence in Philanthropy. And this quarter, we are pleased to honor James C. Martin and the late Mary B. Martin, who have given significant support to East Tennessee State University, and in fact, established the Mary B. Martin School of the Arts at ETSU. Their generosity has led to the cultural enrichment of thousands of people in the Northeast Tennessee region and beyond. And their generosity helps ETSU support collaborative relationships in the arts, once again, both in the region and well beyond. Both of these were smart folks. Mary Martin took night classes at ETSU, graduated in 1962, became a chemist at Eastman Chemical, and went on to hold 2 patents for her inventions. As a bright scientist, she also had a tremendous love of the arts. Her contributions, of course, live on in her husband's very generous gift to ETSU. Once again, Jim Martin had a stellar career at Eastman, also a holder of patents, and his generosity in doing so, he established a $1 million endowment at ETSU to honor his wife in 2009. Their generosity ensures that ETSU has a wide variety of both performing arts and graphic arts, and many that might not be seen in the region in East Tennessee, typically held in major metropolitan areas. But again, their unique gift has enabled all of these cultural riches to come our way. So why does someone like Jim Martin, a very bright scientist, also have such a tremendous influence in the arts? Well, no doubt he was influenced by Mary Martin, his beloved wife, but he believes that science and the arts combined equal innovation, and that in promoting the arts as well as the sciences, we by default encourage a more creative and more competent student, and ultimately more creative and competent professionals in their field. Mr. Martin's initial gift of $1 million, once again thanks to his generosity, now exceeds $5 million in the endowment. So they are truly examples for all of us to emulate as great philanthropists. Of course, no one knows Mr. Martin better than ETSU's President Brian Nolan. And Dr. Nolan, I'd love for you to come forward and say a few words about the Martins.
Regent Reynolds, thank you. Members of the board, thank you and good morning. It's my pleasure on behalf of our faculty and staff to speak a little bit about the impact of Mr. Martin on our institution. Words cannot begin to define the impact that one individual is having on the arts at ETSU. But when you bring together his contributions to date, coupled with contributions that we announced a few weeks ago, he is single-handedly transforming the face of the arts at our institution. We are very appreciative of the board's leadership in the capital process, and we are on the planning list for the receipt of funds this spring to begin planning for Fine and Performing Arts Center. A couple of weeks ago, we launched an arts initiative at ETSU with the goal of raising the full $9.5 million that's required for our external match by July 1 of next year. And Mr. Martin was the lead gift on that effort, pledging $3 million over the course of the next 14 months. That brings us a third of the way home. That, coupled with his activities to date, truly show his passion not only for students but for the institution, and we're very grateful and appreciative of your recognition of him this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nolan. Once again, great examples of the generosity of Tennesseans and the significance that the power of one or two individuals can make on the lives of so many. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, that concludes our report.
Thank you, Regent Reynolds, as well as Dr. Nolan. Appreciate that. This is an item that requires no action, but I do appreciate the presentation as well as the commitments that have been made to one of our institutions. The next item on the agenda is the report of the Chancellor, and I will turn to Chancellor Morgan for his report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In keeping with past practice, I'm going to make my report by recognizing somebody to make my report. But Monica Greppin-Watts is our Director of Communications for the Board of Regents, and as she comes forward, I'll just mention a couple of things to you. You will recall that the Complete College Act specifically called for us to move toward or evolve toward a comprehensive community college system in the state of Tennessee. And you will also recall, I think, that the work that was done following the Complete College Act and the white paper that was prepared, and then the plan of action that this board adopted, I suppose, in June of that year, envisioned that we would try to raise the profile of community colleges in Tennessee to a level where we could be more effective in penetrating the market in Tennessee and attracting students to utilize the significant value that exists in our community college system. One of the elements of that plan, one of the elements of the discussion was about marketing. We discovered through various efforts that the community college system in Tennessee is not well known. It's not well understood, and one of the reasons for that is perhaps a lack of effort on our part, dating back for many years, to really maximizing the exposure of the community college system and communicating to the citizens of the state the value proposition that we have. So as part of our delivery, part of our completion delivery activities, community college marketing is a key strategy for us that we think, in fact, will impact our ability to meet our goals. Monica's going to talk about the marketing plan as the activities that have taken place. The second thing that she's going to do, I'll go ahead and introduce this topic as well, is I think all of you know that we have, the legislature has been moving toward passing a bill that would rename our technology centers to a new name. We have done some work around that area, and we'll present some information to you about that as well. So Monica, if you would.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman and Chancellor. First, I'd like to introduce the team of people who have been doing the really hard work on the community college marketing effort with me and Vice Chancellor Nichols. Virginia Moreland, who's coordinating the marketing effort, and then Matthew Gann, who you've all met before. So, as well as a team of marketing folks at all of our community colleges across the state. As you know, the passage of the Complete College Act and now Governor Haslam's Drive to 55 initiative are focused on the need to increase educational attainment for Tennesseans across the state. One way to support those goals is to understand the affordability and the accessibility of post-secondary education in Tennessee by exploring and taking advantage of all the opportunities that are available to them here, especially through Tennessee's community colleges. Our recent success in developing the Tennessee Transfer Pathways, as you know, and our new unified system of community colleges have highlighted the advantages of Tennessee's community colleges. This community college statewide marketing effort is a support strategy that is designed to contribute to the system-wide completion goal. While this plan doesn't directly affect whether a student completes or not, we expect that it will provide more applicants and enrollees to have a better understanding about community colleges. However, our research has shown that several misperceptions continue to persist about our community colleges, about the quality and affordability, and particularly related to the following areas. A few years ago, we contracted with the Center for Business and Economic Research to do a study about this, and here's what they found. That students are particularly concerned about the cost of attending a college, and that's the cost especially as compared to working and not going to school. About the ease of accessing information about admissions and financial aid. They have a lack of confidence that courses will transfer from the community college to a four-year institution, and the impression that community college students have less school pride than four-year institutions. We believe that as more students understand the quality and affordability of Tennessee's community colleges, more Tennesseans will see that post-secondary education opportunities are available to them. To do so, though, we need to significantly change the public's perception about our community colleges. Specifically, with this effort, we plan to brand Tennessee's community colleges in a comprehensive statewide system that articulates the advantages of attending a community college, to heighten the awareness of the opportunities available, to change the ideas that people have about the affordability of attending a college, to reframe the misperceptions about the quality, value, and the transferability of courses at our colleges. And we want to drive the interactions between Tennessee's community colleges and students, workforce, and business and industry. And ultimately, we hope that that will help us increase enrollment. Within our plan, we have relevant action steps that we will take, and in some cases we have already taken to meet our goals. I'll quickly run through them, provide an update on what we have accomplished so far and what our plans for the future include, and identify some of the challenges that we face as well. As you know, we've already completed several steps in our plan. We've created a name for the system, Tennessee's Community Colleges, and after a thorough process of research, gathering data, and consensus building, we created a logo and a tagline, as you see here. We developed a style manual that defines how the logo should be used and how campuses will be implementing the use of the logo on their campuses and within their own brands. We created a message platform that includes messages for different audiences. And we created a comprehensive community college website. The site will be promoted in all media and collateral pieces and serve as the first point of contact for respondents. And it's designed for multiple audiences. First, to inform potential students, if you would just click on the main, of the options available and provide a central location for students to go to about programs and find which college might be the best fit for them. It's also designed to provide a one-stop location for business and economic development, to find information about programming and services, if you would click on the online training programs up there on the left. The site is live now. Okay, thank you. And it's linked and it's available to access from our website or from the URL that you see there. Our brand launch will push the site out to multiple audiences. As peer-to-peer communications continues to rise as the primary source of information for many young adults, we'll incorporate a social media strategy in what we do. As you see here, we've established Facebook and Twitter accounts already. Go ahead and click on Facebook. This is the Tennessee's Community College Facebook site. While we've already published some information out there about all of our community colleges, the brand launch will actually push this out there to our audiences and actually encourage people to engage on this site. We are also creating, thank you, campaign toolboxes that are dedicated to specific community college programs that include various elements that may be customized by the individual schools while maintaining a cohesive look with the overall brand. One mini example of a campaign toolbox is the Finish Faster campaign that we've developed for our structured learning programs. You heard about our structured learning programs at the last board meeting. They include cohorts, accelerated schedules, and block scheduling. Because of a grant allocation from Lumina, we were able to develop this mini campaign specifically targeted for that. There's a Finish Faster website that you see here, and that's available from the Tennessee Community Colleges website. We developed a promotional video. Go ahead and start. I'll play just a few seconds of that.
How do you get the most out of college?
Save money.
Learn from fantastic teachers.
Get real-world experience.
Build great relationships.
Earn money sooner.
And pursue your passion.
All at the same time?
The answer.
Finish faster.
Finish faster.
Finish faster.
Finish faster.
Finish faster.
At Tennessee's community colleges.
It's a 3-minute video, so we won't play the whole thing. And we developed banner ads, flyers, press releases, and other material that can all be customized by any of our campuses to use for their structured learning programs as well. And these tools will all now be used in our upcoming action steps. So what is the next action step for our plan? Now that we've developed these tools, our immediate next step is the development of a plan to roll out an introduction of the community college system. We're in the process of developing that plan now, and the plan will include the supporting tools that we've already talked about here, as well as the search engine optimization plan that uses targeted online ads. We'll incorporate a strategy to ensure that the Tennessee Community College's website is displayed as a top result in major search engines. And our online advertising strategy will include what I like to term as stalker ads, so that if you're out visiting and you're out Googling or using another search engine for a community college system, then you can also, when you go to Facebook, one of those ads will pop up on your Facebook site. It'll follow you to other websites as well. We'll also use that to use click-throughs and track our visits to the website. And one of the most important elements in our campaign will be an internal communications component. Encouraging all of the constituents at our community colleges to take part in the campaign is an essential element to this campaign. We'll develop, in collaboration with each of our colleges, a plan to inform, encourage, and engage all faculty, staff, and students with the message platforms that we've already developed. We'll incorporate other tools like press releases and events. And we'll continue to work with the campuses on collaborative efforts that will leverage their own marketing dollars to help with the system efforts as well. After that, the next major action step will be the development of the ongoing brand marketing plan for 2014. While the immediate step is to launch the introduction of the campaign, in the following years, we need to build on that introduction and reinforce our key messaging to address brand misperceptions that we've already talked about. That plan will be flexible based on our system needs, but you should know that efforts will be affected by funding as well. So here's a rough timeline. Based on what I've already outlined, as mentioned, the items at the top, we've already developed the key components like the logo, style guide, website. But you'll see our plan development phase is highlighted in the green for April and May. We'll be producing materials like ads or videos for the campaign in June and July. And simultaneously, we'll be working with the campuses to plan that internal launch strategy. Our goal will be to roll out for the public campaign in August, September, and October. The next step, the development of next year's brand marketing plan, is going to be driven by the system, by the needs of the system, but it'll also be determined by funding availability, which we'll discuss shortly. I want you to know that we are planning to measure the effectiveness of what we do through several different methods. Our quantitative review will track the numbers of applicants and enrollees at the community colleges. However, you know there are many reasons why a student might choose or not choose to enroll or apply to a college that may not have anything to do with our marketing efforts. While it's not a reliable immediate gauge of our success, it is something we're trying to influence, so we're going to measure it. And to measure whether we're changing the perceptions about community colleges, we're going to be doing follow-up research, including surveys and focus groups that resemble the original study conducted by the Center for Business and Economic Research. And along the way, we'll be evaluating how effective our tools and tactics are by measuring those click-throughs that I discussed before. So to reiterate, our next step is the development of the brand introduction. That effort was delayed slightly this year as we identified available funding. Now we have one-time money dedicated for this year, and we're getting back on track with the planning. The longer-term issue is the question of a sustainable source of funds for the ongoing marketing plans. As you know, the efforts we identified earlier can't be accomplished if we advertise one time and then stop. We must be consistent and ongoing if we expect them to have an impact. For comparison, let's look at what comparable states are doing. The state that has a system closest in scope to ours is Indiana at the Ivy Tech colleges. The Indiana budget is more than $2 million a year. Alabama is in the second year of its marketing system marketing at the system level. They've told us they expect to increase their marketing budget to $2 million this year. What we need to bring to your attention is that we don't have an ongoing source of funds to contribute our marketing efforts. And why does this matter? Well, you've heard about what the private and proprietary institutions are doing. If we expect to be successful, and the community college system has to be visible in this market. So hopefully this gives you an idea of where we are in this marketing effort. We've made great strides in developing a launch plan. We wanted you to be aware of the challenges we face going forward. And with that, Mr. Chancellor, Mr. Vice Chairman, I'll take any questions you have.
Go ahead, questions.
Any questions, comments?
Yeah. If I could, I might just interject a couple of things here. $2 million in Tennessee, if you translate that to our tuition, community college tuition, for example, I think that's about a 0.8% value against community college tuition. Senator Harkin, U.S. Senator Harkin committee did a lot of work on proprietary higher education institutions over the last couple of years that led to several recommendations that were coming from that committee about federal aid for proprietary schools. But one of the interesting things that they discovered in the work that committee did is that the group of proprietaries that they looked at, and there were about 30, I believe, companies that are the leading companies in terms of higher education, Apollo, which is University of Phoenix, and so forth, those kinds of entities. Somewhat over 22% of their total revenue was being spent on marketing and enrollment activities, which is what we're really talking about. When you look at that in terms of dollars, it was something on the order of $4.5 billion 2 years ago that the proprietaries were spending on that marketing enrollment. So if you assume, as most federal measures end up working out to about 2% of it is attributable to Tennessee. So that's somewhere $80 to $85 million being spent in Tennessee by proprietary institutions to market and enroll students. So for us to compete effectively in that marketplace, it will take some investment on our part in order to do that, to support the local marketing efforts that are taking place at our community colleges. So I just say that to I guess, put you on alert that we're going to be talking to you about that. And as we come forward and talk about fees, talk about budgets, and the next meeting, the June meeting, where we consider those things, we'll have more conversation with you about that and possible approaches that we could take.
To follow up on that, I'm assuming that part of that would be to see how our community colleges are marketing themselves and the tools they use, and is there a way that we can leverage that as part of this broader campaign, so we're making sure that as say a Chattanooga State, which is in my hometown, markets itself, that we are looking at in terms of this broader type image that we're trying to create. So is that part of what you're probably looking at, Chancellor?
Yes, and part of Monica's presentation, I think, pointed to that. What we hope to do is and because we have a lot of community college folks here today, let me make this real clear. Our plan is not to suck in all the dollars that are being spent on marketing currently across the system, but we are intentional and will be intentional about trying to leverage, trying to make sure that what we do at the system level, what we do at the institution level promotes each other, and so that we can take the resources we are spending and be as effective as we can possibly be at penetrating that market. So, yes.
Yes, sir.
There's nothing in the governor's budget for this?
There is nothing in the governor's budget for us that is specifically identified for marketing. There are some new dollars for higher education in the budget, but not about marketing. No, sir.
Would it be within our discretion to use some of that money for marketing for community colleges?
Yes, it would be it's within our discretion to allocate funding for community colleges for purposes that we choose. So it certainly is a possibility.
Any other questions or comments? Okay.
Okay, we'll switch gears.
Yes, to
Okay.
technology.
Thank you for the opportunity to share this information with you as well. Over the past year or so, there'd been some discussion about the consideration of a name change for our Tennessee Technology Centers for several reasons. First, to help out, how to help out-of-state industries better understand the post-secondary and higher education opportunities offered by our technology centers. Second, to enhance the perception that students have about the technology centers as centers of higher education. And third, to allow the technology centers to qualify for national and industry grants that are targeted specifically for colleges. And we understand that some of those grants they're excluded from just because they don't have college in their name. So we had anecdotal evidence about these points, but we didn't have real specific data. And we were planning to do some research to evaluate the possibility of a name change. In the meantime, House Bill 236 was introduced by Representative Harry Brooks to change the name of the Tennessee Technology Centers by replacing the word center with the word college. So the end result would be Tennessee Technology Colleges. Hearing about the bill and knowing what we were already planning to do some research, we ratcheted up our plan to do that research, to change the name and to gather data and to identify an appropriate name choice. We wanted to know if the name selected would first adequately represent the expectations of the students and the industries and the people who hire those students. And we also wanted to avoid, as much as possible, any brand confusion with the other institutions in our system. We worked with Prince Market Research to conduct surveys of key constituents. The folks there worked with us to very quickly gather some survey results and some very helpful data. And I'm pleased to say that here today to present some of that information to you is Mr. David Butler, Vice President of Prince Market Research, and I'll ask him to come up and present his slides.
Great. Thank you all for the opportunity to be here. Happy to follow what we, excuse me, what we just heard about marketing and the importance of kind of carving out your own identity. I am going to run through about 15 or 16 slides with you really quickly that kind of outline the research that we did and what some of those key takeaways were. As Monica said, we talked to really 4 key constituencies. You see these first 2 we're calling traditional students and non-traditional students. They didn't actually have to be students. That they were really that demographic that we were looking for, okay? And we actually excluded folks that were already enrolled in a 4-year college. So the four constituencies we talked to: traditional students, which were up to age 24, non-traditional students age 25 plus. I think we actually cut that off at 45, so that was ages 25 to 45. Tennessee employers, where we went out and talked to several of those folks in an online survey, and then the county mayors and chief economic and community development officials. You know, Monica had said we'd moved pretty quickly on this, and we did, although one of the things we always try to make sure to do is not move too quickly through the design piece. So we spent a couple weeks working on the design. We really had 4 separate questionnaires, one for each of these groups. They were very similar, these questionnaires, but they weren't identical. We changed the language, modified it a little bit based on the particular group that we were speaking with. But you can see here on this second point that we were in the field, as we say, in doing these online surveys and some phone interviews late February to early March, so right around the time the bill was being discussed. Ended up receiving a total of 923 completed responses, divided among those 4 segments. You can see traditional students is where we got the most, 328. 272 non-traditional students, 146 employers of different sizes across the state, and then 177 of the county mayors and ECD officials. Particularly good response rate on that last group, where we had hoped that we might get 100 or so responses and got nearly twice that. So we found a lot of folks very eager to participate in that. First big takeaway, and some of these will talk about what we learned collectively over the 4 groups, and some of them will be particular to 1 or 2 of the specific constituencies. This one's really about the county mayors and ECD officials, where they believe that employers in their area are primarily looking for trade and tech school grads. But when we talk to employers, there was a little bit of a disconnect, because employers really say they're looking for college grads. That word college again coming up.
Did they define college grads?
Well, no, we just left it as college grads. We gave them a choice, as you can see on this page right here. So the question, if you look at the very bottom there, the question that we asked to employers is, what's the type of education that you're generally looking for in candidates when hiring for your most common positions? So you can see on the county mayor's side, they were really thinking that schools want those kids with the trade or technical background, and the employers themselves saying we really want the college grad.
And they define that as a 4-year degree?
Well, we left that kind of ambiguous. We didn't want to define that too specifically for them.
But it would be interesting to make sure, in light of what Monica just laid out, that because if we're going to do what she talked about, we got to have people understanding that that community college degree is a college degree.
Yeah.
And you'll see we've got a lot of supporting evidence for that exact thing here coming up. So, second big takeaway, when we asked them about some of the various options that were being considered for the renaming, all 4 segments generally agreed that the Tennessee College of Applied Technology and Tennessee Technology College were the names that really kind of currently describe what TTCs are doing right now. Let you see how that breaks down across those different groups. So that box on the bottom, that kind of burgundy box, is the Tennessee College of Applied Technology. And you can see that employers, 41% of them preferred that name. You see with traditional students and non-traditional students, there was also a preference for Tennessee Technology College in terms of what kind of most accurately describes what this is doing right now, what the TTCs are doing right now. And then Tennessee Workforce Institute, it's worth mentioning that polled relatively well among all those groups. Not nearly as well as the others, but it was the other one that got some traction. But as we move on, it's really the Tennessee College of Applied Technology is the one where there seemed to be the most traction. Because the other one was asking, remember the question that we just looked at was about which one they think best describes what the TTCs are doing now. So when we change the question a little bit, and I'll point you again to the bottom of the page in red there, which of the following would you likely find to be the most impressive as you evaluated different candidates? That's what we asked to employers. When we were talking to the county mayors, which of the following do you think sounds like it would do the best job in helping you meet and grow your county's workforce demands? And for students, which of the following institution names do you think would best position you to get the job you want? And you can see here that Tennessee College of Applied Technology, especially with employers and with the county mayors, was the best choice. And while there may be some confusion as to a difference between a community college and a college of applied technology, there do seem to be some clear differences. So the confusion, let me just get right to that. If you look at the red bars on the left, we really want, these are 2 separate questions. So we had a bunch of programs or majors like accounting and criminal justice that you see across the bottom there. And we asked them the first time, which of these sound like they'd be programs that would be offered at a community college? And they could check all that applied. And then we asked them the same question again with the same set of choices, but the question had changed a little bit to say, okay, which one of these do you think would be offered at a college of applied technology? Okay? So it wasn't an either or. And you can see that accounting, criminal justice, elementary education, clearly they associated those with what they would find at a community college. On the other side, College of Applied Technology, they clearly associated automotive technology, machine tool technology, welding, and even HVAC as being programs they would expect to find at something called the College of Applied Technology. Now, those last three areas, maybe a little bit of confusion, which is why we said that on the previous slide, might not be clear to them where they would find that. They both would expect to find medical lab tech, for example, at both of those. Cosmetology, they weren't quite sure there, and engineering was one that was also pretty evenly split. So I hope those correlate with the programs that are actually offered at those places. We also asked a little bit of competitive information to find out, really to Monica's point about all that other money that's being spent on all these other organizations that are out there, whether they're, many of which, in fact, are for-profit institutions. And the one that really came to mind most often for people was ITT. And you can see, again, the questions at the bottom there. But it's kind of the preferred choice. Which ones, that they hear a lot about and are likely to hire people from, or you can see with students, we asked them which one was the most affordable. So we're looking, this is a top-of-mind measure in a lot of ways. And certainly the Tennessee Technology Centers pulled very well on that, really across all four groups. We've kind of combined them here. But the results are similar. ITT Tech, number 2 there, and then they kind of go down from there. I think what's interesting to me as a researcher is that even when we get all the way down, say, to Miller-Mott, there's still a fair amount of people that are mentioning those types of schools, so a lot of competition. And that's what I have. Any questions? Yes.
So when you went back to the employers compared to the ECD and county mayors and what do you need and the college degree and the lack of sort of definition of a 4-year, and that would seem pretty relevant to me, the definition, because if you're talking about marketing to students the name college, I can understand why you would not want to drill down on the definition of college. But if you're talking about employers, it's not like you're going to be able to market to employers that something is a particular thing, right? So if you're talking about employers, they either need a 4-year degree or they need a 2-year degree, and the sort of definition of what we call something is not really all that relevant to the employer, right? I would think that what matters to the employer is what they actually need.
If I could address that, and I'm sorry for the confusion. There's this survey was really specifically about the name of the Tennessee Technology Centers. This is not related to the marketing of the community colleges at all. It was focused, what we were trying to do is to address what sort of name would best fit the Tennessee Technology Centers. So we asked a few of those other questions related to those, but we really didn't do in-depth research on that. We were specifically focused on the name.
Okay, so does the name, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, when you think about the name and defining this as a college, I've been under the impression, and granted, this is mainly through sitting through all the legislative sessions, that we were thinking about that purely from the perspective of students, and that the idea was we don't have enough students saying, I want to do this specifically because we're not identifying this as a college. But I was not under the impression that there are employers who, that employers would change their hiring practices as a result of what we would call the technology centers.
Well, I think it's probably more subtle than that, though, for the employers. I'm not suggesting that they change their employment practices. We're just saying that the name college is the kind of thing that I think is going to pop a little more with them and resonate a little more with them than a center, for example.
Yeah. And if I could maybe add a little bit to that, Commissioner, the conversation that we have been having for the last several months, and you'll hear more about as a board possibly at the June meeting, working with the Greater Nashville Chamber, and the kind of regional, the workforce investment boards in the region, the community colleges in the region, and the technology centers, is there is confusion on the part of employers as to what a technology center does, what the credential that they award means. There is certainly confusion, and based on conversations with ECD folks, for out-of-state employers when prospects come to Tennessee and think about what's available to them. When you say, and we have universities, we have community colleges, and we have technology centers, nobody really knows what that means. And they compare those to other states and say, well, the technical colleges that they have in this state really fits our needs, but we don't see that here. Well, part of that is because of the confusion around technology center is just not a term of art nationally in terms of the same kind of programs that you would get at these other kinds of institutions. So it does have some impact. I don't think it necessarily changes hiring practices, but it probably changes their understanding of the availability of particular competencies based on credentials. Yeah. Sure.
As I listen to this, does this potentially, without bringing the community college piece back in, further blur what is a community college? Because now, as you look at that chart about what people think is going on in a community college or a technical center, as we're talking about trying to position community colleges, as I listen to this, you get a sense that it really makes that even more difficult to draw that distinction of what is a community college compared now to a technology center, particularly if you change it to a college.
It certainly could, but based on what we think we heard from the survey materials, there does seem to be differentiators between the offerings of what have been called technology centers and may now be called colleges of applied technology and the community colleges. But clearly, it is in our interest as we move forward to try to differentiate, try to communicate as clearly as we can what the array of offerings are at our various institutions and how they fit. One of the things we have learned from this work we've been doing with the Greater Nashville Council is that employers frequently will recruit for a credential that they think reflects the competencies that they're looking for, when in fact, and this particularly is true in the IT world. I mean, we've a lot of conversation about IT shortages here, and particularly in this region, but I suspect it's true statewide, with employers out there recruiting for bachelors in IT. When you really cut through what they're looking for in terms of competencies, many times they're looking for folks that an associate degree will provide the competencies, or in some cases the certificates from the technology centers actually address the competencies that they're describing, but they don't understand what the credential means that we offer. So to answer the question, yeah, we need to be sensitive to that. We need to be careful about how we differentiate and how we communicate. And that's one of the things that as a board and down the road, the board doing a better job of communicating our array of offerings across all of our institutions is something that we need to be paying attention to.
I remember several years ago, maybe just 2 years ago, the legislature actually did take the name technical out of several of our community colleges' names. I remember Nashville State Community College used to be Nashville State Technical Community College. In my opinion, and I agree with what I think the survey shows, that the name College of Applied Technology does a better job of distinguishing the difference between our community college and what the technology center would be. Now, I think the name before the legislature is still to change it to Tennessee Technology College. Pardon?
They're moving to this.
So they are moving to amend it to change it to what appears to be the better name to distinguish between our community colleges. Good.
Question, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think that as this goes forward, though, that it will be necessary for all of our community colleges to make sure that they give opportunities to not only talk to the mayors and economic development people, but employers. I mean, that disconnect between what the employers think and what the mayors and ECD people think is a little bit concerning to me in terms of maybe they need to get together. I'm not sure that that's specifically our job, but I do think that we need to put together some kind of plan on the level of our technology college centers, soon to be colleges, to address that and be very active in clearing up any conversation, clearing up anything on the front end, instead of just assuming everybody's going to understand what that means.
Well, and part of what we are working on here in this region, really with the support of, and really the financial support as well as the intellectual support of the Greater National Chamber, is really aimed toward that kind of effort to bring the workforce investment folks who represent local governments and employers together with employers, together with our providers of training and workforce activities, including the technology centers and the community colleges, and the pilot that we're pursuing that we'll talk more about later is creation of skills panels, where you really have at the table folks who can talk about competencies and try to kind of pierce through the vocabulary, because we use different words than the business community uses sometimes to describe things, certainly different words than local government officials use to describe things. So trying to cut through that and really get to a point where we understand what is it that an employer needs for people to know and be able to do, and then we can craft programs, align programs, create new programs as necessary to produce a workforce that has those competencies for those areas. The three clusters that we're looking at is allied health, advanced, Mary Lou help me, manufacturing technology, and information technology, I think, are the kind of the three areas we're starting with here in this region to really try to get to a place where there's clarity between employers and our education institutions as to what it is really that we need to be doing, which we hope then translates into a much more effective, nimble, and responsive system to be able to provide what they need when they need it.
I would hope that a year from the name change, that if we did the same research, that we would see that people would be a little bit more on the same page, because that's concerning.
Yes, we certainly would hope so. But let me be clear about this, that our community colleges are also significant contributors to applied technology programs. So it's not an either or, it's a both and. But to get back to Tom's or Regent Griscom's point, we need to be careful about how we advertise that, how we communicate that, to make sure there is clarity.
I have a question on the methodology side, not that it changes much, but several years ago, the legislature changed county executives to county mayors, and my real question becomes, as we use the nomenclature county mayors in our four larger counties, Davison, Knox, Hamilton, and Shelby, did we talk to the city mayors, because they often are the lead drivers in economic development in those areas?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. What we did is we worked with the ECD folks, and they gave us a list of all of the people that they had on their distribution lists for economic and community development. So it wasn't just the people identified as mayors, and that list was about 500 people across the state.
Okay, thanks.
I have one comment.
Yes.
Monica, do you see any risk in changing a name? I mean, the TTCs, have they pretty successful brand at this point. We looked at one slide, 63% of whatever employers look into the TTCs. If you even change a name, all of a sudden, who are you? So I assume there's going to need to be a marketing piece that goes along with the name change.
We haven't really discussed doing an in-depth marketing piece, but what we have done is sort of, we've amended the bill and to change it. Definitely, I wanted to confirm that the bill has been amended to change the name to Colleges of Applied Technology. And we are going to just cover the cost of the budget to do that change within the institutions, but we don't have a specific marketing plan for that.
Vice Chair, is this something that we initiated, or is this something initiated by the legislature?
This is, I'll try to be as candid with you as I can be. This is a conversation that has been going on for some time. I was probably, I guess, a year and a half ago, maybe. I was brought into a conversation that I'm told has been going on since the days of Otis Floyd as Chancellor of the Board of Regents. We did not initiate a change in the statute, however, but that did get introduced. Representative Brooks, Senator Tracy, I think, were the proponents of the legislation that got a little bit ahead of where we were going, although we had determined that we wanted to understand this name. And part of what was driving me was every time I go to the Capitol, I pass, and I know this is being in webcast, so I need to be a little careful, but I pass a school that's called something college. And when I investigated what that was, it was very much about the things that we do at technology centers. And it just made me think, and then after I had talked with some of our folks about their desire to look at this, it made sense to me that we would pursue it. But once the legislation got introduced and the discussion started, then we accelerated what we were planning on doing anyway, which was trying to go out and do some assessment of the marketplace about kind of, does name matter? And we think we found that, yes, name does matter, and that this seemed to be, the legislators involved were amenable to letting us influence their ultimate decision based on kind of what our best thinking was about how to move forward.
Regent Griscom.
Chancellor, I think I know this answer, I'm going to ask you anyway. So with this effort that was prompted by the legislature, are they putting money in there for the cost of doing all the changes that are going to be required to make this? I mean, and I would assume that they would do that because there will be a financial piece to this name change.
The answer is no. They're not putting any money into it, but that's not an uncommon occurrence. Need to be careful, but it is. But this is something I don't think we'll see a requirement for a huge expenditure all of a sudden. This will be an incremental change. We will have language, we hope, in the appropriation bill that allows us to apply unexpended plant funds that we have available in the technology center budgets to help offset the cost of signage and that kind of thing. And we may very well come back to you at some point in the future with an idea of doing a brand launch for this as well, because when we talked about this, the competitive marketplace we're in with proprietary schools. I mean, this is right in the heart of that competitive marketplace. So the better job we can do in communicating our value proposition, the better job we can do in driving to 55, no doubt.
But the big difference is, you've already said, these private institutions are spending $1 gazillion marketing these changes, and if we don't have any money to make those changes, that's sort of a interesting way to go about it.
Well, it definitely is an interesting way for us to go about it, but it's a reality, in my opinion, that it's an issue that we've got to address, and the reality becomes, how do we address it given the external factors that we are confronted with, and this approach right now, in my opinion, presents the best opportunity for us to at least address the known reality of the confusion of the name factor that's out there. And then from there, we'll move to further steps. And one of the issues as it relates to the confusion factor, I don't want to, I've been sort of swaying to see if Vice Chancellor King is in the room, but yes, one of the issues some of you might have is that if we are to make these changes, does it somehow affect Hope Scholarship, NAFI grants, or other issues? And the short answer is no, but Vice Chancellor King might be in a better position than, well, not might be, is in a better position than I.
You know, I think the short answer and the long answer both is no. You know, it's really not. I think it doesn't impact, you know, and it does not, as you said earlier, Bob, that it has been a pretty successful brand thus far. And, you know, and, but this is, as Chancellor Manning or Chancellor Morgan mentioned, that it's been around. It's been around long before Chancellor Manning and Chancellor Floyd, basically. You know, so I guess that's what I was thinking. It's been beaten around
I need to do a better marketing campaign.
a long time, but it's not going to change that. It's, you know, there's not going to change the clock hour based, the non-degree. You know, but I do think that this is something. You know, I'm going to tell the story right quick. It goes back to, and I've told the story many times, and we've got one county that we have a technology center that's been in that area since '65, and there's a private 2 or 3 seat private proprietary cosmetology school in the county, and this director has said for years that when he goes into the grocery store and meets somebody, and they say. He'll ask them where their child's going to college, and this mother may stick her chest out and said, my child's going to the college, and it's Betty's Beauty College. That's where the pride level is. Their child's going to college, you know, and they don't say that same about going to the technology center. You know, I think this does add a credibility factor because, you know, we've been in a culture all of life that a college is the best way to be successful. So, but once again, Regent Duckett, I don't think it changes anything. I think it does help market better in those communities. You know, sometimes we get those students that come out of high school and flounder around a while, you know, and then we get them back at 27. Maybe those that flounder around a while, we may get them because their parents say, hey, my child's going to the college. We may get them at 18 and make them a more productive citizen early on instead of floundering around. So I think, now back to your marketing campaign, you know, we have put off, you know, every so many years we've had to do marketing campaigns ourselves, something we put off for years. And so I think we'll be talking with Monica and working with them about a branding and marketing at some point once this is done.
Like the artist formerly known as Prince.
Right.
Something like that.
And I guess Chancellor Morgan, I keep stuck here now on this.
Well, I'm just glad that you are doing it and not me.
Okay, thank you. That it has gone through it's passed the House Education the House Education Committee and the Senate Education Committee. Has it not this far? So I think we never mentioned where that was in the whole scheme of things right now. So, but but long run, it still doesn't affect. We do not enter the Hope Scholarship side. We still keep the Wild and NAFI because, my gosh, I wouldn't want to change to the Hope Scholarship side because that Wild and NAFI works for us and works for our students. So, and then the degree side that is not in any, you know, I've watched systems all over the state country that's changed into that and got out of the clock hour base and has not been quite as successful in completion rates and things. So I think we still understand our student body. We understand that what we're working with right now is successful. And I don't see us making any changes except the name concept.
Thank you.
And if I could just
yes.
make one more comment. One of the things that we are working on is a new look, a logo that will incorporate the new name change. And we are in the process of starting to develop a website for the system, TTC, the College of Applied Technology.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Not, excellent update and report. Turn it back over to Chancellor Morgan.
That's it?
Thank you. Appreciate the genuinely I appreciate the update, and by the dialogue, my peers, I'm quite sure they enjoyed it as well. We look forward to the end product. Next, moving on with the agenda is the report of the presidents and directors, the first of which will be Director Brad White representing our technology centers, or I should say the entities that are currently called technology centers.
Well, the only thing I would say about that is my counseling department will be so thankful that they don't have to explain that we're not the Career Center or we're not the Vocational Rehabilitation Center. At least maybe will go away. Vice Chancellor Duckett, Chancellor Morgan, Regents, appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. Last week, technology centers from Memphis to Elizabethton met in Chattanooga to celebrate our statewide in-service and sponsor the National American Technical Association annual meeting. Over 916 attendees came from all over the United States to learn about the latest technical advances in teaching and technology. Over 60 program sessions were available, plus a lot of general sessions, and we had approximately 60 vendors there. During the TTC 2013 Golden Moments Award Ceremony, the following TTCs and their employees were recognized. TTC Outstanding Staff Award was given to Kim Davis from Athens. Kim has served the TTC at Athens for the past 21 years as an admissions record counselor, business systems technology instructor, the financial aid supervisor, and RODP instructor, and currently is the assistant director. And it explains a lot why Director Smith is so successful there. The TTC Shining Star Award was also given, which recognizes an outstanding and innovative program or initiative that has made distinctive mark on communities and the clients that the Technology Center serves. In 2009, Shelbyville's Computer Information Technology Program began the implementation of an on-site learning management system, LMS. Since that time, Steve Mallard and Don Babian have uploaded over 2,000 resources for students to have 24/7, 365 access to. Steve and the CIT program won the 2011 Computer World Honors, and Steve was named a Computer World Laureate in Washington, D.C., and we want to congratulate them on that. Another award given is the Tom Hall Outstanding Faculty Award. Janet Watson from TTC Oneida Huntsville was a recipient of this prestigious award. Janet not only prepares her students with the technical and academic skills they need to get a job, but she cares about her students' physical and social needs as well. Janet goes to great lengths to ensure that all of her students' food, clothing, transportation needs are met both to find and keep a job. She provides them with a strong support system while they are in school and long after they leave her classroom. Janet has been the business systems technology instructor at the TTC at Oneida Huntsville for the past 25 years. She has truly made a difference in her students' lives. The Business and Industry Partnership Award went to Stowers Machinery. Stowers has supported the diesel-powered equipment technology program at TTC Knoxville, Elizabethton, and Harriman by contributing over $480,000 in the last 5 years to their programs, and has also hired 100 graduates from the 3 TTCs over the past few years. The Technology Centers also received national honors from the American Technical Education Association. Miss Emma Hobson, TTC nursing faculty from Elizabethton, received the 2013 ATEA Outstanding Technical Teacher Award. The medical assistant program at Knoxville received the ATEA Outstanding Technical Program Award. We congratulate both of them. And probably the most important award is the Outstanding Student of the Year. This is truly what the Technology Centers are about and what the Board of Regents is about. The 9 finalists for the Outstanding Student Award were selected based on personal accomplishments, leadership skills, and ability to empower others. The student who is selected as Outstanding Student of the Year will serve as an ambassador for technical education in Tennessee. The 9 regional finalists, and I'd like to mention their names and the centers they're from: Mary Kumuru, Chattanooga; J.L. South, Crossville; Robert Johnson, Jackson; Jessica Waters, Knoxville; Kim Slickmeyer, Livingston; Maxie Burney, New Bern; Cherry Lizzie Davis, Pulaski; John Beeler, Shelbyville; Darius Henderson, Whiteville. And the winner was, need a drum roll, Miss Mary Kumuru from TTC Chattanooga and Chattanooga State Community College. Ms. Kumuru is a recent graduate of the TTC Chattanooga Aesthetics Program. She presently serves as the National Secretary for Skills USA. In addition, she is a registered nurse and a new member of the nursing faculty at TTC Chattanooga. She was born and raised in Kenya, East Africa, and has been in the United States for the last 18 years. Mary is a proud mother of her 10-year-old daughter, Rachel. As becoming the Outstanding Student of the Year, she was given a 2013 Chevy Spark through the donations of the TTC directors, Amatral, and Freeland Chevrolet in Nashville. And I would like to ask Mary if she would come forward and address the board members and guests. Mary?
Good morning to all of you and to all of you here. I would like to say thank you so much for this opportunity and for allowing me to be a guest in your meeting. And really, as he's already said, I am a proud mother of one, a registered nurse. And because of the instruction that I have received at TTC Chattanooga, under the leadership of Dr. Cantazero, Dr. Barrett, the staff, and the faculty, that has led me to want to become one of them. And sure enough, March 1st, I was hired on as new faculty member, and that is a good sign that they're doing something so good that I want to be just like them. Like Chancellor Morgan, I would not think of a better day to be here with this group, and I do seriously mean that from the bottom of my heart. My journey at TTC Chattanooga began in the fall of 2011 as a registered nurse that was ready to transition and have a little bit of a change in career. I thought I'll go into aesthetics and I'll combine nursing and aesthetics. And nowadays, everybody wants to look good, look young, and I will inject Botox and I'll make lots of money. So along the way, I realized it's not about making lots of money. It's about changing lives, your own life being changed, and influencing those around you. I didn't think I did anything extraordinary, but I showed up to class, did my work. They said, "You want to be involved in Skills USA?" Sure. I became a state officer, a local officer, and now a national officer. And so my goals and my journey, they have led to where I am just continuously evolving into a place where, under great leadership, I don't know where my future will be, but I know it will be in a great place. Along the way, as a state officer and a local officer, I faced quite a few challenges in my life, my personal life, and I knew that with a dying grandmother, a wrecked vehicle, a sister that was in the verge of a major depressive moment, after a suicide attempt, I had to be there for her. So in many ways, I faced challenges, and TTC Chattanooga became my family that I leaned on. And the beautiful thing about the TTC technology, or the Tennessee Technology Centers, you're just not a number. They know you as Mary Kumuru. I can walk into Dr. Barrett's office. I will many times have to make an appointment to see Dr. Catanzaro, because if I busted into his office, I will be stopped at the door first. And Miss Suzanne Myatt, the coordinator, Miss Sandra, the financial aid coordinator, and Miss Allison, I know them by name. They know me by name. As a graduate of a four-year college, I cannot remember a single name of anybody in financial aid. They cannot remember me until they pull up my student record number. And probably they'll not remember me, they'll remember the information that pertains to that student record number. So I want to commend and congratulate the TBR, the TTC, and all the work that you do to ensure that we are successful. I'm a success story. And not only that, I said, this is even better than the Academy and the Grammys. I don't get a plaque to hang on the wall. I get the keys to a car. Now, the only little problem I have is I want a car, but I want to drive it. So whoever needs to write the check and go to the dealer with me, who is he? Raise your hand. So I am so thankful because career and technical education in Tennessee, the Tennessee Technology Centers have done so much for me, and not only for me. Now I have a class of 26 students that are going to become bright, competent nurses that are going to go out there and do what I could only do as one person. Now we have 26 of them as a product of who all we are, and that's only going to continue. And to add in my intelligence here, I really like that formation of the name change to Tennessee Technology, or Tennessee College of Applied Art, of Applied Technology, rather, because there has been that connotation of, I go to a vocational school maybe because I'm not as intelligent, or Johnny goes to automotive because he's not enough smart to become a lawyer or a doctor or the big job. Not everybody is called to be a lawyer or a doctor or a great businessman. But if you work on cars and you do it good, we all drive cars, and I want to have somebody to work on my car. As a nurse and an esthetician, Regent Griscom, how good of a facial would you give? So you need an esthetician to give you a great facial. So if you do not, no, I'm not picking on you personally. So I'm just saying, for all those applied technology degrees and diplomas, from cosmetology to welding, God forbid that they told me to have to weld something, I have no clue where to start. So I'm thankful that the Tennessee Technology Centers have that now, that pride to hand on to those students and are able to apply the best at what they are and still make a wonderful living, a great income, be productive members, leaders, and citizens in their communities. Because many times people have looked at me and said, you got a 4-year degree. Why did you go back to the technical center? Well, because I now know that at a technical center, you gain those hands-on skills that you only are not stuck in one area, but you're marketable, you are able to go above and beyond, you gain the leadership skills, you get a job and you get a car. And so I could go on, but I just want to say a huge thank you, and mainly thank you to the Tennessee Technology Center at Chattanooga, the Chattanooga State Community College, for the support that they have shown me through this journey, and for many of you that are going to Congress and behind doors and in the background scenes working for students like myself, and we don't know the work you do. We think you're at the board meeting because that's what the board members do, but really you are focusing on issues that affect our everyday living. Thank you so much for that. Thank you.
So, Mr. Vice Chair, may I have a point of personal privilege?
Most definitely.
Thank you. No. Yesterday I was asked if I'd ever been in a kayak as a college course, and so I confessed I'd never done that. But my wife would love for you to do that to me because she's been trying to figure out how to make me look better for years.
That concludes the director's report. If there's any questions.
Any questions?
No, but if I could have a point of personal privilege, I want to say that it was, last week I had the opportunity to be in Chattanooga for the selection of the Outstanding Student Award, and it was, again, just about impossible and many tears and why do we have to pick just one, all of those kind of things. But I hope if you have not, that you will read about all 9 of these students because every single one of them are outstanding. They have unbelievable stories of success, of sticking with the most difficult of situations, and talking about how the faculty and the staff at these technical centers literally made all this possible, that they could not have done this without the tremendous support of the faculty and the staff at the technology centers. And it is just the best part of some of the things we get to do as regents, to be able to meet these students and hear their stories and feel so proud of the work that's being done in all of our schools. But I just wanted to say that it was a privilege and an honor, and that please take the time to read about all of these. And if they are in your communities, congratulations on the job that each of you have done, because all of these kids are, or I say kids, of course, but students are superstars. So thank you.
Thank you, Regent Varlin, as well as thank you, Director White. Next, we will have the report of the community colleges, and President Mary Lou Apple will give that report.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman, Chancellor, and Regents. On behalf of the community college presidents, good morning. I would like to bring your attention to the newsletter that is before you and highlights several great achievements that are going on at community colleges. And I want to say thank you to Virginia Moreland, because this is the first time it's been moved out of the community colleges and up to the community college staff. So we thank you for what you've done. This morning we want to highlight 2 presentations for you. The first presentation will be by Dr. Jerry Faulkner, who is the president of Volunteer State Community College. And following Dr. Faulkner will be Dr. Pigg from Jackson State Community College. So I'll call on Dr. Faulkner.
Thank you, Dr. Apple, Vice Chairman Duckett, Chancellor Morgan, Regents, good morning. Happy Good Friday to you. There's lots of evidence out there that the way to attract students to the STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, math, is to make them active learners and to give them hands-on experience rather than just memorizing formula and equations. And we have a long history at Volunteer State Community College of involving students in undergraduate research. Currently, we're one of only 26 community colleges in the nation to participate in a National Science Foundation-funded community college undergraduate research initiative. We have research activities that are embedded within biology, geology, chemistry, integrated science, and math courses that will affect approximately 600 students each year, giving them, again, hands-on experience in doing science, not just reading about it. And so at this time, I'd like to share with you a short video that will hopefully give you some insight into our program.
Here, fishy, fishy, fishy. A college class held next to a stream in Gallatin is more than just a nice break from the classroom. It's an opportunity to bring science research alive.
Students don't often have opportunity to participate in research from the very beginning. Ball State has implemented the undergraduate research program as a way to increase student investment and engagement. That should lead to greater interest and investment in the work, and we sincerely hope that the outcome will be interest in STEM that students had not previously considered. That's what it's all about, filling the STEM pipeline.
The grant that supports this has several inherent
points that they want to cover. One is to enhance student learning. The other thing is connect all students to science, because science drives a lot of what we do in society.
We have this set to take readings every 15 seconds.
Yeah.
We have this one over here set to take readings every 30 seconds. They're taking the same readings, but...
Okay. And so this is a data logger also? You take this back and plug it into a computer and read from there, get your data into a spreadsheet or whatever. Very cool. Very cool.
Being stuck in a classroom all day kind of gets boring, so it's nice to be able to go out and actually see things firsthand. You always read about things in textbooks and it's like, oh, it's this far off place, but being able to do something in your own community and find out about it, actually applying science, is great.
It was really cool. It was my first time doing anything like that. I'm used to just being in the classroom or even in a lab like this, and just getting out someplace like that is so much different.
Back in the Vol State Chemistry Lab, the learning continues as students analyze the water samples and compile the data collected from the streams. It's an opportunity for faculty to incorporate laboratory study into the ongoing project. That gives students experience using a wide range of equipment, including the college GC mass spectrometer.
And now this mass spec is basically looking to see if anything's coming through. And you can actually see this in real time. It's not very sensitive at that scale.
This collaboration provides us with some modest funding for supplies, provides significant amount of professional development for our faculty and staff.
It involves approximately 200 students a semester in classes of biology, microbiology, fundamentals of chemistry, general chemistry, organic chemistry, geology. So it's interdisciplinary in nature.
While the research experience for students is the primary mission, the water data that the students collect also helps the community.
We are fortunate that the stormwater folks have really sought our participation in their initiatives. They are required to collect a tremendous amount of data and have very limited staff. So in collaboration with the stormwater folks, Vol State faculty have been trained by state personnel who are responsible for taking the data sent from the stormwater collectors and amassing it for the state of Tennessee.
There are a lot of jobs out in the private sector and government sector that focus on water quality issues, and this is a great insight to that world.
The end result is often a change in perspective for students, not only in how they view science, but also in how they incorporate science into their lives.
When you look at the chloroplast and water chloroplast,
photosynthesis.
Yeah.
It really opened my eyes to my own personal health, and knowing that, what you, like I said earlier, what you do, what you put into the environment ends up into your bodies.
I try to do what I can to save the planet and go green and try to do my part. I can honestly say I think about this class every day, down to even when I brush my teeth to shut off the water, just the little things.
And it was a real treat for me to be able to tag along on one of these student trips and get back into the classroom, so to speak, back in the teaching mode. That was a real good thing for me. As mentioned in the video, one of the notable things is that this is real scientific research, and we're collecting data that we share with folks like the Sumner County Stormwater Development Agency, the Tennessee Environmental Council, the cities of Gallatin, Goodlettsville, and Hendersonville. They're all benefiting from this research as well, and we're thankful for that partnership. Mr. Powers, Dr. Powers that you saw in the video, Paris Powers, he and one of our students just returned from Washington, D.C., where they reported on our research at a national conference. So this is an exciting opportunity for Volunteer State. Thank you for allowing me to present. I'd love to answer any questions you have.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All righty.
Good morning. I'm Tom Pig from Jackson State Community College.
like to thank you for the opportunity to come and speak about this recent designation that Jackson State Community College has received. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the designation and then kind of talk about how we got there. Basically, the designation, we are now considered by the National Security Agency and the Department of Homeland Security a National Center of Academic Excellence and Information Assurance at the 2-year level. Information assurance, you may have heard that term at one time or another, but if not, you're probably more familiar with terms like cybersecurity, cyber terrorism, and those types of things. So that's kind of what this is really based on. This is really just kind of the definition of what a Center of Academic Excellence is. Again, the National Security Agency and Department of Homeland Security jointly sponsor these national centers. And just to kind of paraphrase a little bit here, the 2-year designation is only about 3 years old. There has been a Center of Academic Excellence for 4-year universities that I believe it really came about in the late 90s is when it really started. You'll notice on my slide there's a total of 166 CAEs in 42 states. As far as 2-year colleges, and yes, I do have a little typo there, there are only 24 currently designated across the nation, and of course Jackson State is one of those. We do have a couple of universities here in Tennessee that are CAE, actually the University of Memphis is a CAE-R, which is a research level Center of Academic Excellence, and I believe it's UT Chattanooga. I'm not 100% sure of that, but I believe that they're an IE. But basically in Tennessee, we are the only community college, but I think there will be soon more to come in the future. So basically what are we required to do or to have in place in order to be a Center of Academic Excellence and Information Assurance? You see here we have to have, number one, IE partnerships. And these partnerships are with business, industry, and other government agencies. We have partnered with them in helping them and letting them help us to know what to teach in the classroom with regards to cybersecurity and so forth. We also have partnerships with the FBI, Homeland Security, the U.S. Secret Service. We have partnered with them. We went out with them. We have held presentations on the subject, both public sector and the private sector organizations, to help make them aware of the current cyber threats that are out there. So that's one requirement. IA is a multidisciplinary. We include information assurance concepts in other classes other than just computer classes. In things such as our allied health and nursing, there are things as far as the different HIPAA laws and different types of privacy and so forth, and how do we protect that and so forth, patient confidentiality, that sort of thing. So that's part of it. IA student development, we offer classes. To our computer information systems majors, we actually have a concentration called information assurance that does focus on how do you protect the network infrastructures and so forth from cyber attacks and so forth. Outreach, again, I kind of mentioned that with the partnerships. We do speak to different community groups and so forth in the area of information assurance. We also do faculty training, which I'm going to mention in just a few minutes. Not just Jackson State faculty, but faculty across the state. And then finally, the practice of IA is that as an institution, we actually practice secure, building a secure infrastructure so that our campus as a whole is protected from cyber type attacks. Now, I said I was going to talk about really what's kind of behind this. What really got this started was this thing called the Cybersecurity Education Consortium. CSEC actually began out in Oklahoma, and it actually is funded by a National Science Foundation Advanced Technology Education Grant. And we joined the consortium back in 2006. And basically the purpose of the consortium was to help spread cyber security or information assurance education at the 2-year level. to our faculty across the state. And as you'll see there, we have had people from 11 of the 13 community colleges, actually IT faculty, from across the state attend these workshops. We've hosted close to more than 18 actually now of these, and typically how the grant helps us out is we're able to pay the travel expenses for these faculty to come to various locations so that we can, and usually these are 4 to 5 day workshops, very intensive workshops. And the goal is for these faculty to take that information back to their individual colleges, community colleges, and develop their own courses and programs. Prior to 2006, and I think it's fair to say that we had very few security-related, computer security type courses at the community college level. Right now, out of those 11, I would say probably most of those 11 have at least one course, but many of us now have complete concentrations or programs. So we've really improved that. Another thing that has really helped with this is with this partnership of these 50 IT faculty across the state is we've built up quite a network to where we can communicate with each other on topics relating to the computer field and computer education. So this has been a very, very good thing. And basically what has happened is this, now that we are designated at Jackson State as a Center of Academic Excellence, it's taken several years to get to that point. And there are other institutions across the state, other community colleges that are also working on this designation. And of course, we've been able to kind of assist in that process. Just a real quick, just a couple areas that we are focusing on beyond the norm as far as cybersecurity. One of the big areas is the automation and control systems. We just heard a presentation about water treatment plants being a very critical type infrastructure, learning how to protect the controls that control water treatment and so forth, mobile communications and so forth. We also big into digital forensics. And this is one area just as where are we going with this. One of the big topics that we're really facing right now, one of the big issues is protection of critical infrastructures. This is a list of critical infrastructures that are referenced by the Department of Homeland Security. One of the projects that I'm currently working on is trying to identify, what are those vulnerable infrastructures in Tennessee, what makes them vulnerable, and what can we do here in Tennessee to help protect these very critical infrastructures. So that's pretty much where we're at. There's several links within here. If I'm sure this PowerPoint will be available. If some of these links might help give you more information about the actual designation and where we're heading. So, and as just to kind of let you know how we're still continuing workshops, and they're very popular. We've got one coming up in July that within about 6 hours of me posting it, I've got 18 enrolled. So it is very popular, and we're very fortunate that we've had some grant to help us fund this. We're actually getting close to running out of this grant, but I'm working on another project grant that will be, of course, trying to partner with the other community colleges across the state to help fund this. So again, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you this morning, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer any of them for you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Thanks for the update.
And that concludes the community college report, unless you have questions.
Any questions for President Apple?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the report for our universities, and that report will be given by President Brian Nolan.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Duckett, members of the board. I'm going to keep my comments brief this morning. I recognize there's a great deal of new business that remains before the board, but I would just want to touch upon a couple of themes. The first is that regardless of the weather, and this is coming from someone who drove through snow on his way to Nashville the other day, it is spring. And with spring, our students and our faculty are preparing to bring the spring semester to a close. I hope that over the course of the month to come, as you're provided with opportunities to participate in commencement ceremonies, that you take one or two of those, because that ceremony provides a reaffirmation of why we do the things that we do every day of the week. And that's to ensure that students have the opportunity to realize the dream of receiving a college degree. This morning I want to share with you some things that are happening across your universities that reaffirm that purpose. And I want to first start with the theme of community service. As noted in the High Signs report, at TSU, the University of Memphis, and at Middle Tennessee State University, each of those institutions was named in the President's Higher Education Community Service Honor Roll for their exemplary actions to serve the people of the state of Tennessee. This recognition is among the highest federal recognitions for community service, and it exemplifies the work that your universities do on a daily basis. For example, at Tennessee State University, there are more than 2,000 students who gave 20,000 community service hours with the financial impact of right around $400,000 over the course of the past year. Also within the impact of community service is the service to our internal communities at institutions, and those are our students. At Tennessee Tech, they've begun a food bank to quietly serve those students behind the scenes who have financial need. Many of our students are first generation, low income. They're unwilling to ask for help. And by that university providing a safety net, that is an opportunity for those students to be served and provided with support mechanisms to help them with that path to a degree. I want to take a moment to really focus on something that was recognized at Austin Peay State University. Sometimes there's awards and folks say, well, that's just another award. But behind that award is a great deal of substance. Austin Peay was selected as one of the top military-friendly institutions in the country. And it received that designation because of the work that they've put in place, both from a policy perspective as well as from a financial perspective, to ease the transition of veterans as they return from service to the classroom. If you've been in a student center, be it the Morgan University Center or be it the Culp Center on our campus or any university center across the campus, they're crowded, they're noisy, and they're chaotic. If you're suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome, that is an environment that will just literally bring everything to a head for you. So by giving a safe space, a quiet space, a friendly space for veterans to come together, to work, to study, to learn, coupling those veterans with counselors and support mechanisms across the institution, Austin Peay every day of the week is ensuring that our veterans have a successful college experience, and that was recognized by their selection as one of the top military-friendly institutions in the country. I want to take a moment to now focus on the theme of community service, but through the lens of diversity. This course of the past couple of months have provided an opportunity for us as a state to have a dialogue around themes of diversity. And within that dialogue, I hope we have reaffirmed our commitment to the goals of ensuring that our students are prepared for a changing world and in a world that is much more than simply a world of receiving a degree. It's a world in which we're preparing students to receive a degree to compete in an international marketplace, a marketplace that is very diverse. I'd like to step away from the things that are in the high signs, but to tell a story of an event that occurred on our campus this week. On our campus this week, we recognized 5 individuals who, more than 50 years ago, stepped forward with individual acts of bravery, but supported by an institution to begin their exploration of a college education. In 1956, Eugene Carruthers, a teacher at the Langston School in Johnson City, enrolled at ETSU to pursue graduate education. And in 1958, he was followed by 4 of his students, Elizabeth Crawford, Clarence McKinney, George Nichols, and Mary Wagner. Those students were the first to desegregate ETSU. It happened without incident, but what we celebrated on Tuesday was bringing the 3 living members of that group to campus to celebrate their achievements and their life outcomes. These 3 people became teachers, business leaders. They served in the armed services. But through their acts of bravery and the individual acts of an institution, they transformed a community. This was part of a week-long activity and celebration on campus called Civility Week. And unfortunately, in these times, we've lost the sense of civil discord. Individuals take stark positions and they find no middle ground. So as an institution this week, we focused on civility. We had 2 things outside of the dedication of the fountain that I think also resonate, and they resonate with our conversations today and our conversations moving forward. The first was a comment by Soledad O'Brien, whose mother was Cuban, whose father was Australian, and she grew up in a biracial family. Her parents were married at a time in which it was illegal for them to be married in the state of Maryland. So they went to Washington, were married, and came back to Baltimore at Johns Hopkins University, where every day they were spit on and ridiculed as they walked down the streets. And Soledad asked her mom, "Mom, how'd you do it?" And she said, "Honey, we were on the right side of history." So now fast forward to an event that occurred Tuesday night on campus, where the Fisk Jubilee Singers and the chorale group from Davy Crockett High School came together on the stage of the Culp Center and performed. This is a system through the Geyers program and others that's on the right side of history. And I hope that as you look at the things that are before you today and in the months to come, and as you participate in commencement, you'll realize that individual colleges have the opportunity to transform lives, but universities and this board have the opportunity to transform communities. And I was reminded of that by these three individuals who are with us on Tuesday, whose children and grandchildren went on to college. One was a student body president at ETSU. But that act of an institution enrolling those students not only changed their lives, but it made us a better community and a better state. Mr. Chair, I thank you for allowing me to deviate slightly from the traditional approach, and I'd be happy to address questions.
Thank you, Dr. Nolan. Are there any questions for Dr. Nolan? Thanks again for the report.
Thank you.
Moving on the agenda, the next item is unfinished business, and there is no unfinished business. As such, we will move to new business for the board to take. First item of which we have three informational items that will be presented to us. The first is an overview of the governor's budget, and that will be given by Vice Chancellor Sims.
Mr. Chairman, it's a pleasure to be here today. If I could, I want to commend James King for the novel way that he apparently announced his retirement today. Seriously, it's been great working with James. I will try to be, as Brian said, as Dr. Nolan said, it's been a long day already, and I'll try to keep my comments brief, Regent Thomas. If you'll turn to the first slide here, what we're going to do is look by sector at the impact of the governor's budget recommendations. I won't go through every line here, but I do want to highlight a couple of things on each of these slides for members. If you look at line 3, formula implementation, you'll recall that we are in the last year of implementation of the new outcome formula. So we still have two things going on: the phase out of the old hold harmless agreement from the prior enrollment-based formula, and the phasing in of the new formula. So when you see in our university sector that is a $5.5 million reduction, that is really where the combination of those two factors is reducing our recurring appropriation in the university sector by that amount. As part of Governor Haslam's plan in implementing the formula, he has also, though, provided almost $2 million in our university sector to phase that in. That basically goes to the benefit of the University of Memphis. They were the institution in terms of negative effect that was most significantly impacted through those phase-in, phase-out provisions. Line item 4, funding for outcome changes. This is the first year that we've had any material funding for changes in outcomes. So as outcomes have grown throughout the system, in our university sector, we have earned almost $14 million in additional funding through the higher ed formula. Line 8, University of Memphis Lambeth. Again, this is part of the transition funding where the University of Memphis has taken over operation of that Lambeth campus. This is, I believe, the third year of a 4 or 5 year phase plan there. So this is the governor fulfilling his plan to transition that campus to the University of Memphis's governance. The next chart, and I just ask if you have questions as we go through this, please feel free to stop me. The next chart is an identical chart for community colleges. Again, I draw your attention to line 4. The implementation change in our community college sector is in total is a positive number. In terms of recurring dollars. Now, underneath that, we do have community colleges that are being negatively impacted, so don't read that to mean that everyone got a little bit of this $824,000. That is a net number. And then again, phase in, phase out money, the $2.3 million non-recurring is the last installment of that money in our community college sector. Line 5, in like fashion in universities, there was funding for outcome changes, so the outcome growth is being rewarded at our institutions to the tune of almost $9 million. Next sector, I'll call them technology centers today, since that's what they are today. You see again formula implementation, $98,600. That primarily for technology centers is driven by the removal of the hold harmless provision, so they're gaining slightly through that. And then almost $2.5 million from formula changes from the outcome changes. Specialized units, just a word on that. Specialized units are things such as the medical units at the ETSU, as well as the research and extension units at Tennessee State. Line 6, operating increase. Those increases are being driven primarily to our medical units at ETSU, the School of Medicine and Family Practice. Next, for the central office, the numbers here are, again, in similar fashion in terms of group insurance changes, salary changes such as that. I'll draw your attention to item 7, the community college TTC equipment funding. You'll recall that the governor has recommended $16.5 million of non-recurring money. We hope that is the first of a 2-year plan to distribute funding, both in terms of replacement and replenishment of antiquated equipment at technology centers and community colleges, but also hopefully for seed money to allow us to start up programs in areas where those programs are needed and there's currently not funding to actually start those programs. So that $16.5 million was part of the governor's original proposal. We're reflecting that money within the central office, but as you know, it will actually be expensed through various community colleges and technology centers. Last slide, Mr. Chair, is the grand total. The budget that we've talked about before is from our standpoint, in the last 5 years, it's the best budget we've seen. We have salary funding, our benefit costs are being covered, our institutions are receiving for the first time in maybe a decade, are receiving additional operating monies, and the non-recurring money for TTC and community college equipment is a needed addition there. Be glad to respond to any questions members might have. I, again, tried to make this a brief overview. David Gregory, Vice Chancellor Gregory, will probably comment on this during his remarks, but our sense is that they're getting pretty close to closing session down, so as budget amendments are considered, these numbers might change some if they're, I'm sure that we'll be communicating those as those events occur. With that, Mr. Vice Chair, any questions I'd be glad to try to address.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Sims. Are there any questions regarding the governor's proposed budget? Hearing none? Thank you. Next update is legislative update from Vice Chancellor Gregory.
Chancellor Manning and members of the board, good afternoon.
So you're retiring too?
My privilege to give you an update on the actions of the 2013 General Assembly. And if I might just sort of place in context where things are. This is the first year of a 2-year General Assembly. The legislature is, as Dale pointed out, getting close to beginning to debate the budget, which is first signs of spring. It's the first signs that the legislature is about ready to adjourn. The committees are going to meet likely 1, possibly 2 more weeks, so the standing committees with legislation are sort of winding down, and what's about to occur is beginning debate of the budget. Just to remember that bills that are introduced this year will hold over if they're not acted upon until sine die next year. With that, then, Mr. Chairman, I think I will give you a few highlights of the bills that impact us. First of all, there's a bill that we've been working on with the Comptroller's Office relating to the bonding capacity of our institutions. It is Senate Bill 978, House Bill 445. It is moving along through the committees. It's in the Finance Committee with no problems. What this allows for is when our institutions are seeking to undertake debt, it allows the revenues pledged to all of our institutions to stand for one, and therefore not get in any kind of jeopardy as it relates to maximizing the funding capacity of an individual institution. The second bill, which you've heard probably most about, is the guns legislation. We were included in the bill that passed that relates to what's been called guns in trunks. It in essence allows individuals with handgun carry permits to be able to bring those weapons onto private property, including college campuses, provided that they are out of sight and in a locked vehicle. And when I say it allows them to bring it on, let me clarify that by saying there is still some debate as to just exactly the applicability of all of this, because the statute that's being amended is the criminal statute, so it certainly makes it not a crime for someone to bring those on. There is certainly still open debate as it relates to employers being able to have policies that relate to their own employees, and in our case, students as well. The next piece of legislation you've heard me talk about a little bit is the Higher Education Ombudsman. This legislation was introduced but not acted upon last year. It is still an active proposal this year. The bill as was introduced calls for two positions, or two new positions in the comptroller's office. A higher education ombudsman and an inspector general for higher education. The bill calls for 5 new positions that would work for one of these two titled positions, and has a fiscal impact of about just slightly over $500,000 recurring. I will tell you that the comptroller offered an amendment last week to take the inspector general designation out of the bill and roll that all of the responsibilities into the office of the ombudsman. It doesn't diminish, as I can tell, the power that is granted to the office. It just simply takes the term inspector general out of the legislation and has the powers resident with an ombudsman. I cannot give you a solid answer as to whether or not this legislation is going to pass or not. With the $500,000 fiscal note, that makes it tough. With the amendment, the fiscal note will be reduced down to maybe somewhere between the 200,000, 300,000 level. I think that still is a bit of a tough climb, but I just don't have a great sense about that. The office of the ombudsman is to provide a venue for faculty and staff to be able to report things and have some form of action, investigation, if you would, taken upon the complaint or the inquiry for information. It also would allow for the evaluation of compliance with fiscal policies of both the institutions of the Board of Regents as well as the University of Tennessee system. The next, you heard of a series of bills that was introduced in and around this whole topic of preferential treatment. If I might just take a moment to thank Dr. Oldham, Dr. Nolan, Dr. Raines, who appeared with Chancellor Manning, particularly when Senate Bill 8 was, he got that. Particularly when Senate Bill 8 was debated. All of these groupings of bills relate to initiatives that have been introduced in other states about the sort of anti-affirmative action type legislation. The bills that you see listed on the screen in front of you are likely not to pass this session, with the exception of the third one you see, Senate Bill 114. And this relates not just to higher education, although we're included, but it relates to all of state government as well. And this is a bill that's limited to showing preferences based upon race, gender, or ethnicity when hiring. And in our system, we do not have a point system that grants points based upon race, gender, or ethnicity when hiring. The problem that we have had and continue to have is just all around what is a preference and what constitutes a preference, because we are very deliberative, as each member of this board knows, about being diverse and seeking representation from all people from all walks of life in our system. The next bill has been discussed with you previously, is the bill that changes the name of the technology centers. As amended, it now changes the name of the TTCs to the Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technologies. This bill has about a $50,000 fiscal note on it for changing out our signs, so therefore it's in the Finance Committee. There is legislation that has been proposed and passed related to a meningitis vaccine. Meningitis, for most of you know, is somewhat of a rare bird. I think the health department said there were 7 confirmed cases in Tennessee last year, 1 death, and unfortunately that death was a student at Middle Tennessee State University. And so, whereas in the past we have been required to advise students of their risk for meningitis, if you act upon the action that will be before you in just a few moments, you'll be acting on changing our policy that will comport to the legislation that will be passed that will require students who are going to live in our residential housing at our universities to be vaccinated for meningitis. The way the policy is being drafted, it will allow some of our institutions to have a more expansive policy, if you would, if they want to. And I know some of our institutions may want to do that. But as a minimum, students living in our dorms will be required to have the meningitis vaccine. This comes at a good time as it relates to actions of the federal government with respect to vaccinations under the Affordable Care Act, in that if you sort of comport your policies with the CDC, then private insurance companies are required to cover those costs of those vaccinations. Meningitis is about $110, I think, prior to adding on the fee for the dispenser. Student organizations is also a bill that has gotten a good bit of attention, and I'm going to try to present this without gritting my teeth. But this is the bill this subject was a matter of a bill that the governor ended up vetoing last year. You may recall the whole discussion around recognized student organizations came to light as a result of a situation that occurred at Vanderbilt University. And legislation that was passed last year that talked about allowing institutions, recognized student organizations, to be able to control who is a part of their leadership and membership, included private universities last year. And the governor found that to be an overreach, if you would, by the General Assembly, and therefore he vetoed the bill. So this year's version came in 2 different bills. The first bill that relates to us only, public institutions only. The second bill would be another attempt to pull in, if you would, Vanderbilt University and a couple of other institutions that have police operations. And the connectivity is rather loose, but the idea would be if you have these sort of policies, then you would not be permitted to have a police department. That bill, the second bill that you see that would attempt to pull in Vanderbilt, has now been put in the general subcommittee. The bill that is going to pass is the bill that relates to public institutions. And so the bill that you see, Senate Bill 802, House Bill 534, is likely to pass and become law. And then finally, Mr. Chairman, I give this to, well, two more. The psychology legislation I'll talk about just briefly. There's a piece of legislation, and I give you this as a bit of a precursor of things that may be coming our way more and more. There was a case at Eastern Michigan University, if I recall, where a student in a counseling program refused to counsel someone because of the student's sincerely held religious beliefs. And that became a result of a lawsuit that I think has been vetted now through the, or is being vetted through the Sixth Circuit. This is legislation now that has come to Tennessee because of the situation in at Eastern Michigan, and in essence says that our institutions cannot discipline a student who's in a psychology program or a counseling program if they refuse to counsel someone based upon their closely held religious beliefs. This bill will not become law this year, but will become a part of a summer study. And so our psychology departments, as you can imagine, engaged in some major ways in opposition to this legislation, but there'll be more discussion in and around this subject over the summer. And then finally, a number of bills again have been considered, introduced and considered, but not passed yet, that relates to the lottery program. I'm still not smart enough to be able to tell you which bills could be acted upon this year. My general sense is that not much will be done with the lottery program this year simply because of the lack of availability of additional revenue. The one bill that I think is getting the most discussion is this bill by Senator Overby and Representative Ryan Haynes, which is the first bill that's listed on your item, Senate Bill 710, and this would assure a student of getting 8 full-time semesters. As the bill is written, it would say your terminating event for the lottery is 120 hours or 8 semesters, whichever comes last. The bill does have a fiscal cost to it of about $2.5 million, and so for that reason, somebody will have to come to grips with whether or not the lottery funds would be sufficient to allow this to happen. What this is an attempt to do is it is an attempt to not penalize students who take heavy course loads and get to their 120-hour period of time at the end of their 7th semester, and they're rolling into their 2nd semester senior year. And someone like Ms. Humphreys and has plenty of credit hours under their belt and then would roll off the lottery scholarship program. Mr. Chairman, that completes my report.
Any questions for Vice Chancellor Gregory?
Yes, Vice Chancellor Gregory. Did I understand you to say, going back to the Guns and Trunks bill, that it is unclear, or I think as you put it, still subject to debate, as to whether private employers, including our campuses, could adopt policies that would say they could not have their guns locked up in their cars?
It is unclear, and I might just comment on that if I could, just a couple of minutes. During the debate on the House side, there was a good bit of legislative intent established about the ability for employers to continue to have policies that would control their employees, and affirmative responses given by the sponsor that this did not at all impact the employer-employee relationship as it relates to having policies. On the Senate side, however, there have been information submitted onto the Senate Journal that tends to speak in opposition to that. So as it relates today, there is a good bit of ambiguity around that particular subject. Again, I'm probably not qualified enough to talk about the specifics of that debate, only to say that the place that this goes into the code is into the criminal code, and it talks about the criminality of carrying handgun onto private property.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not,
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next, we have the annual accreditation report, and that will be given by Vice Chancellor Clark.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Duckett and Chancellor Morgan. So I'm not retiring. And
the difference between an individual that's an interim and a
might get that off.
You get it. You get it.
Okay. I do want to highlight the report, the activities of our institutions and accreditation. There is an extensive report in the board mail-out materials that was prepared by Dr. Randy Schulte in the Academic Affairs Office. He does a remarkable job and a meticulous job in keeping a record of our accreditation activities. And there is a very detailed matrix within the board materials that I commend to you for the detail that you might wish to see. The highlights that we have in institutional accreditation, which is SACS, we're pleased that 2 of our institutions received full reaffirmation of accreditation, that being Pellissippi and Tennessee State. They're approved for their full cycle. And also 5 of our universities and 7 community colleges are involved in reports of the mid-cycle for SACS. Having been involved in that previously, I can tell you it's as almost extensive as the reaffirmation itself. So I commend those institutions for their work in that. There's another element of accreditation, which is program accreditation. There are numerous agencies, national agencies, that accredit particular programs that both community colleges and universities are subject to. 99 7/10% of our programs are accredited if eligible for these agencies. The only exception is at Pellissippi, where they are undergoing a transition to a new accrediting agency in engineering technology, one that another national agency other than ABET, which is more particularly suited to their program. As a matter of fact, they had a site visit from that agency right as we were doing our report today, March 27th through 29th. So we anticipate a favorable report from that. Further, 3 of our community colleges are involved in the various stages of accreditation with agencies. 2 of those are nursing programs, one at Pellissippi, the other at Nashville State. And they are in the final stages of receiving initial accreditation from the National League for Nursing. Further, veterinary technology at Volunteer State is also in the stages of receiving initial accreditation. There are 2 other elements of accreditation or self-studies that I should say that we do in our campuses. One is academic audit, a program that was begun by Dr. Paula Short when she was here. It's a voluntary activity among programs where we have auditors who are trained by the central office, and they go out to institutions and do a self-study for them, and it's an element of institutional effectiveness. We had 44 programs that underwent that this year. I think that's very impressive. It's a very effective program. Further, program review as a part of performance funding. If there is a non-accreditable program in our schools, then they are subject to go in a cycle undergoing a program review. And we had 18 programs in that this year. So all in all, our accreditation is in good shape. And I'll be happy to answer any questions, or if you have any.
Are there any questions from regents? If not, thank you, Vice Chancellor. We will move now to, still under new business, but these are action items that will require action by us as members of the Regent. First is the proposed program termination, modification, and new technical program implementations for the Tennessee Technology Centers, and I will call on Vice Chancellor King.
Vice Chair Duckett and the board, and most importantly, Chancellor John Morgan. You know, if I just want David to be the one that retires first so I can say I'm the longest serving Vice Chancellor. And he didn't correct his, okay. We have 4 program proposals and 3 academic actions to present to you today. These programs will allow each technology center to be more responsive to the needs of students, business, and industries. Chairman Duckett, if it pleases the board, I will go through each of the proposals and they can be acted upon as a unit unless there are questions or concerns.
Is there any objection to that? Please proceed.
Right. The first proposal is to implement a welding program at Morristown to be located in the Greenville campus. The program will be a year long and a diploma will be rewarded. The primary purpose of the program is to train entry-level students in welding various metals using different types of welding process, including MIG, TIG, and pipe. The Department of Labor says there's a bright outlook nationally for welding. This program is also in response to the need for welders in East Tennessee as discovered through Governor Haslam's statewide meetings with business and industry. And I think you mentioned yesterday, you brought up welding 2 or 3 different times. So. Second is a proposal to implement a heating, ventilation, and air conditioning and refrigeration program also at Morristown to be located at the Hawkins County campus. This program will also be a year in length and a diploma rewarded. The primary purpose of the program, once again, is to train heating and air and ventilation and refrigeration to troubleshoot, install, repair heat pumps and gas electric heating equipment, as well as refrigeration equipment, both residential and commercial. The Department of Labor also rates this field of study as having a bright outlook nationally and regionally. The third program is one that's quite interesting in response to the ongoing need for hybrid and electric vehicles. And this program is to be at TTC Crossville. The program will be 20 months in length. The primary purpose is to train technicians to work on the growing number of hybrid vehicles. A needs survey was conducted by the institution and indicated a strong need to provide the training for new technicians and supplemental training to existing auto technicians. HEV, as it's referred to, is a relatively new career option, therefore data from the Department of Labor is limited. However, the institution conducted a needs survey with 15 local dealerships and independent repair businesses within their service area. 80% of the respondents currently employ HEV technicians, and 100% anticipate the need to hire additional technicians in that field. The last proposal is to implement an early childhood education program at McMinnville. It's a 1-year program. The primary objective of early childhood education are to provide training to individuals in the service area of the Technology Center at McMinnville. This program offers a sequence of courses that provides rigorous content aligned with challenging academic standards and relevant technical knowledge for careers in early childhood education. Students will be trained in both the classroom and laboratory settings. On-the-job training is an essential part of the program. The program will follow the statewide early childhood curriculum and prepare students to take the Child Development Associate Certification exam, which is offered through the Council on Professional Recognition. 3 academic actions are included in the report. One is to inactivate the biomedical technology program at Murfreesboro at Independence High School due to low demand. Inactivating the concrete technology program at the Murfreesboro at the Lebanon Instructional Center due to low demand. And also reactivating the practical nursing program at Whiteville on the Brownsville campus. Mr. Chairman, I recommend that these proposals, they've been reviewed by the board office and we recommend approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor King. You have heard the recommendations regarding the proposed program termination modifications and new technical program implementations for the Tennessee Technology Centers. Is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Okay, it's moved by Regent Varlin, second by Regent Thomas.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion, excuse me. Hearing none, this matter requires voice vote. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposes, same sign. Motion is approved.
Thank you, Regent.
Thank you, Chancellor King. Next item is the approval of new degree programs, and I'll call on Vice Chancellor Clark to come forth and present that.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Duckett. You'll notice that there are 3 graduate programs we have before you today for to request your approval of. And as in Mr. King's remarks there, I think we could consider all of these at once, following a summary, if that's okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Before getting into those, though, you will see that 2 of these are professional science and master's programs. Briefly, this is a new emerging type of degree that we're going to see more, I think, evidence of coming forward. It was a degree that began from an initiative of the Sloan Foundation around 1997. The whole idea there is to, in graduate programs that are appropriate, to allow students to focus on courses that directly relate to workplace skills in particular areas. So it is very appropriate that we're getting into that now based on the discussions we've had yesterday and forever really in this regard. The first program is from Austin Peay, and it's a perfect example of what I was saying because the degree focuses on data management and analysis and predictive analysis. And as you know, in education and in business and all our enterprises, data is becoming more important as we consider how we make decisions. So this degree is focused on those particular areas that would provide the student the ability to do what is stated there in data management. There'll be 30 to 36 semester credit hours of these professional courses included in this. It is housed in the Department of Computer Science and Information Technology, and there will be cooperative work with science and mathematics in this particular program. The next program is an MS in Management at Middle Tennessee State University. This program focuses specifically on management. And there are a number of, there are 2 or 3 MS in Management programs, but these programs that are these concentrations that Middle Tennessee is proposing in not-for-profit management, organizational leadership, and supply chain management are somewhat unique in that regard. The external reviewer was Dr. Donald Conlin, the Eli Broad Distinguished Professor of Management at Michigan State University. And he said there appears to be a consensus around the country in the belief there's a need for a master's degree program that focus more on management and less on functional areas, as is the case with many MBA programs. One strength of this program is the uniqueness of the concentrations. In particular, the focus on nonprofit management and the focus on supply chain management represent areas that have been historically underrepresented in master's degrees. Then we see another PSM degree from Tennessee Tech. Very interesting, environmental informatics. It's an interdisciplinary program that focuses not on environmental science, but also in business applications of this. The student will be well prepared to work in environmental industries and green enterprises and so forth. So in all cases, the external reviewers were pleased with these programs, and Dr. Pam Knox in our office, whom I can commend for her work in this as well, has done extensive work on these 3 degrees, and I ask your approval.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Clark. You have heard the recommendation of Vice Chancellor Clark, as well as have been provided information regarding the 3 proposed new degree programs to be offered. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Regent Raines. Is there a second? Second, Regent Roddy. Any discussion? Hearing none. Voice vote is in order. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposes, same sign. Motion is approved.
Thank you.
Next item, Vice Chancellor Clark, if you stay at the podium, is the revisions to the disciplinary policies at several of our campuses. I will not enumerate them, but I will allow you to.
Right. You may recall that last year initiated a new way in which we consider revision of student rules and disciplinary rules. Previously, it had been more complex, but as we looked at how we present these, we decided to take to the Attorney General's office and legislative oversight and to the appropriate committees in the legislature an idea that we could present all of our student rule changes at one meeting of the board in a regular cycle. And so in this case, we have done that, and we have a separate transmittal letter for each of these particular programs, or it's not programs, but rule changes. They range everything from parking regulation and fines to matters of academic misconduct, academic dishonesty, anything that has to do with student misconduct or in that they wish to change or in these particular rules. If we presented you the whole thing, it would be 400 pages. And it might just have a few changes within, each of those particular things. But really, these are rules that our campuses think need to be updated on their particular campuses, these 10 institutions that are presenting them. In all cases, the student right to appeal is upheld in these particular rule changes. So without going into all of them, I would probably request that we approve all 10.
Okay, with the concurrence of the board, is there a motion to approve the 10?
So
moved by Regent Griscom, second. May I take that as a second by Regent Kisper? Is there any discussion? Since this is a change in disciplinary policies, it does in fact require a roll call vote, as a result of which I will call on Secretary Moody to call the roll.
Regent Copeland. Aye. Regent Duckett.
Aye.
Regent Ferris.
Aye.
Regent Griscom.
Aye.
Regent Huffman.
Aye.
Regent Humphrey.
Aye.
Regent Kisber.
Aye.
Regent Montgomery.
Aye.
Regent Raines.
Aye.
Regent Reynolds.
Aye.
Regent Roddy.
Aye.
Regent Thomas.
Aye.
Regent Varlin.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't leave just yet.
I'm not.
Next item is the revision to TBR policy 2.03.00.00 admissions changes from the new Tennessee diploma required for high school graduation, which is effective spring 2013. Want to give us a brief overview of that?
Also, there is another element of this. If you remember at the committee chairs meeting, we discussed the admissions of the high school courses, but there's another element of this as it relates to the immunization policy. I'll again summarize the matter as it relates to high school courses for admission, and then General Counsel Moody would explain the immunization part of that that's we're asking you to revise in our policy. You'll note in the changes there, a lot of red lines in our admissions policy. It relates to a new way that we're considering how we deal with admissions to our campuses. We want to make sure that our students have a rigorous college preparation battery. And the new Tennessee diploma is updated so that now students would require 4 units of math as opposed to previously 3 units of science, in 2 years of a single foreign language. If you approve this revision today, we would have a uniform statement in our admissions material for each campus that would say, admission will be granted to freshman applicants who hold a recognized high school diploma that will reflect a distribution of college preparatory courses such as those required in the core elements of the Tennessee high school diploma, and that reflects those updated changes. Previously, we had monitored students rather closely for not having some of these, and they would make them up in general education anyway. So we felt that we were freeing up our campuses a little bit to have a little more flexibility and leeway as to how they deal with these particular admissions, these high school courses that come in for admission. We expect them to have them, but it's an institutional decision. Otherwise, it gives a little flexibility as it relates to out-of-state students. One thing that does have to be monitored, however, is U.S. history. State law requires that students have, in high school, 1 year of U.S. history. If for some reason they don't, then our campuses will monitor that. They will then have to take a year of U.S. history or 3 semester hours of U.S. and 3 semester hours of Tennessee history if they don't have it. But it would fulfill their general ed in history anyway. So we think that all our sub-councils heartily endorse this, and we'll have that uniform statement if you approve this.
Okay. Do we need?
Yeah, I guess we would.
Yeah.
Both elements.
We thought that we could vote on the admission, the revisions, both his revisions and my revisions at one time.
Yes. Okay. And if
that's
you would,
the way they've been presented to you in one document.
Okay.
And so what I'm going to talk to you about is the medical or health information provision of the policy. And currently that provision reads, each institution may request applicants for admission to volunteer information as to their medical or health conditions for the purpose of providing them, once admitted, any reasonable assistance in mitigating the effects of conditions which may otherwise limit their participation in the institution's programs. Information thus provided shall remain confidential, and participation by the student in any recommended program or service shall be voluntary. We are proposing a change to that so that it would read in concurrence with the proposed past legislation. Each institution shall require all applicants for admission to provide health information that, as a minimum, establishes the applicant's compliance with rules promulgated by the Tennessee Department, and we said Tennessee Department of Health, but it's the legislation changed. It should be the Tennessee Higher Education Commission. We didn't, excuse me. That should be Department of Health regarding requirement for immunization against certain diseases prior to attendance at a higher education institution and compliance with the latest standards for immunization for meningococcal disease as set forth by the recommended immunization schedule issued by the Center for Disease Control Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. I'm sorry for the confusion. We have 2 sets of requirements. The Department of Health has immunization requirements for all other diseases. The new legislation is going to require that THEC promulgate regulations on meningitis, and they have to be concurrent with the CDC's practices. So we're getting ahead of that. The bill takes effect July 1, and in order to have our folks immunized in time for fall session, we need to get this policy changed now.
Okay.
And we're recommending that change.
You've heard the recommendation from staff as it relates to the changes regarding diploma as well as medical and health information. Is there a motion to approve? So moved. Moved by Regent Montgomery. Is there a second? Second by Regent Varlin. This item is one that can be approved by voice vote. All in favor? Excuse me. Any discussion? Hearing none, trying to get ahead of myself. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposes the same sign. The motion is approved. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is the approval of the March 27th, 2013 minutes of the special call meeting of the Finance and Business Operations Committee. Those minutes include a request, a recommendation regarding mandatory and incidental fee request, as well as the approval of the March 14th, 2013 minutes of the Ad Hoc Committee on Capital Outlay and Capital Maintenance. That includes changes to the matching capital program guidance of TBR institutions, and at this time I would call on Regent Ferris, chair of that committee, to make the presentation.
Thank you, Regent Duckett. As you know, the March 27th special call meeting was the culmination of approximately 3 months of review by board staff and members of the Finance and Business Operations Committee of fee requests submitted by institutions. During this time, 2 additional special call meetings of the Finance and Business Operations Committee were conducted. Regents who were not members of the committee also participated in all of these meetings and contributed to our deliberations. In addition, board staff provided recommendations regarding fee requests and additional information requested by committee members. The minutes of the March 27th special call meeting of the Business and Finance Committee include recommendations for approval of the following. Minutes of the March 14th, 2013 meeting of the Ad Hoc Committee on Capital Outlay and Capital Maintenance, which includes guidance on the matching capital program. Mandatory and incidental fee requests, which would become effective fall 2013. Housing fee requests, which would also become effective fall 2013. A revision to the Learning Support Software course fee, which was originally approved by the board at the March 2012 meeting, and the Volunteer State Community College out-of-state tuition waiver request for students of the Livingston Center who are residents of the Kentucky counties of Clinton, Cumberland, and Monroe. I'd like to move approval of the minutes.
Second. You've heard the motion, and it was by Regent Ferris and second by Regent Montgomery. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, this is an item regarding an expenditure which requires a roll call vote. I will call on Board Secretary Moody to call the roll.
Regent Copeland?
Aye.
Regent Duckett?
Aye.
Regent Ferris?
Aye.
Regent Griscom?
Aye.
Regent Huffman?
Aye.
Regent Humphrey?
Aye.
Regent Kisber?
Aye.
Regent Montgomery?
Aye.
Regent Raines?
Aye.
Regent Reynolds? Regent Roddy?
Aye.
Regent Thomas?
Aye.
Regent Varlin?
Aye.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the request to name the College of Education at Austin Peay State University. Vice Chancellor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. It's indeed an honor for me to make this recommendation to name the College of Education in honor of Martha Martha Dickerson Erickson, a little tongue-tied on that, a distinguished graduate of Austin Peay, a 1962 graduate of the College of Education. She grew up in Clarksville but had a distinguished teaching career in Florida. And it was her desire that her resources could somehow be directed toward scholarships for future math and science teachers. And in that regard, her husband has, in her honor, provided $1 million in scholarships in honor of Ms. Erickson to, indeed, for scholarships to prepare math and science teachers. Also, there is a $10 million irrevocable trust that will be granted to Austin Peay by Mr. Erickson in honor. This is a tremendous, I think, recognition. And following, and the next item is related to, on this, we'll call on President Hall, who will give more remarks about this distinguished family and Ms. Erickson.
You've heard the recommendation to name the College of Education at Austin Peay University in honor of Martha Dickerson Erickson. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Regent Thomas, second by Regent Roddy. Any discussion? Hearing none, this is voice vote. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Next item is the request to name a new dormitory at Austin Peay State University, and I will call on Chancellor Morgan
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For all the same reasons that Vice Chancellor Clark enumerated, President Hall has requested that one of the dorms in the new 3-building complex be called the Martha Dickerson Erickson Residence Hall, and I would recommend to you that you approve that recommendation.
You've heard the recommendation of Chancellor Morgan regarding the naming of the dormitory after honoring Mrs. Erickson, excuse me. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Regent Roddy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Regent Thomas. This is a voice vote. Well, I guess any discussion? Hearing none, voice vote. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. At this time, it's my pleasure to call President Tim Hall to the podium for additional comments.
Regents and Chancellor, it's my honor to add a few more comments to what you've already heard about Martha Dickerson Erickson. Most of the time, we at the universities are trying to press forward every day, and the result is that we make incremental changes every day. Today is something more than yesterday was because we've deliberately pressed forward. But from time to time, something happens that gives us the opportunity to actually make a transformative change. And I think that's what's happened here with respect to the gift that you've heard talked about here. It actually began in rather sober circumstances. Last October, Martha Erickson died in her early 70s, and her husband came to Clarksville for a funeral service. And while he was in Clarksville, he came by the university that she had graduated from back in 1962 and began to talk with us about what he might do that would honor the memory of his wife and her association with the university. And his initial thought was to endow a scholarship maybe in the range of $1 million or so after he heard what was going on at the university. Within a very short time, though, after he learned about the university, as we talked with him about the opportunities available, he made a much more significant contribution in his wife's honor. That contribution, as you've heard, includes $1 million right now, and then after 3 years, it includes a commitment to provide $330,000 each year for the rest of his life, and then at the conclusion of his life, we have an irrevocable interest in a trust currently valued at $10 million. So for essentially perpetuity coming forward, we'll be able to spend about $330,000 every year on scholarships in the area of math and science, an area that Ms. Erickson had wanted to see prosper in Tennessee, and that Mr. Erickson also wanted to see prosper because he had heard repeatedly in the news that what America needed was more math and science teachers. And so we now have a scholarship program set up in honor of Ms. Erickson that will provide scholarships for would-be teachers in the area of math and science. These scholarships, one of the great things about them is they are geared towards upper-level students. Mr. Erickson was very concerned that we were relatively comfortable, but that somebody actually wanted to teach and was going to stick with that plan, and so we will be preferring students in their upper levels. That means also that we will be able to grant scholarships to a category of students who receive too few scholarships, and those are transfer students. And I hope my colleagues from the community colleges will be sending us their applicants. We would love to have community college students come on to Austin Peay to study in preparation to be math and science teachers. So we will have a transformative celebration on April 30th that I believe you've all been invited to celebrate this enormous gift. And I want to thank you for giving Austin Peay the opportunity to honor this notable alumna and this transformative gift.
Thank you, President Hall. That is a tremendous gift that the family has given to Austin Peay, and we are indeed appreciative of that, and as well as the services that you provide there at Austin Peay. This concludes the formal agenda.
We do have one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. The one that you told me to jokingly, and I put a mark through it. There is one request to name the academic building at the Dyersburg State Community College, Jimmy Nafee Center. Chancellor Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Upon the recommendation of a campus committee appointed in compliance with our policy on the naming of buildings and facilities, President Boyer is requesting that the academic building at Dyersburg State Community College Jimmy Nafee Center be named the Dyersburg State Community College Baptist Memorial Healthcare Academic Building. Baptist Memorial has been indispensable to Dyersburg State by providing much-needed funding for both faculty salaries and scholarships. To date, Dyersburg State has received over $1.1 million in funding from Baptist Memorial. In 2006, in recognition of gifts to Dyersburg State, Baptist Memorial Healthcare was a recipient of the Regents Award for Excellence in Philanthropy. In addition to their monetary support, Baptist Memorial has had personnel to serve as advisory committee members for various nursing and health programs at the Nafee Center and also serve on the Dyersburg State Foundation Board and Annual Fund Committee. Mr. Chairman, it's my recommendation that the academic building at the Dyersburg State Jimmy Nafee Center be named the DSCC, Dyersburg State Community College Baptist Memorial Healthcare Academic Building.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Moved by Regent Ferris, second by Regent Kisber. I have not had a chance to talk with our General Counsel, and while I don't think it's a technical conflict, I am going to abstain from voting on this matter, and I would like the record to reflect that. And for the public, the reason is I am employed by Baptist Memorial Healthcare Corporation. So, any further discussions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
With one abstention. Motion is approved. Now, that does conclude the formal agenda. And before I turn it over to the Chancellor for final comments, I would like to, and I have done this in the past, but given the hard work that has gone into this week, and I know that some people probably had asked, why are we meeting off campus or not at the central office? But it was because of the retreat that I mentioned earlier, and in that regard, the administrative team that works with the Board of Regents, I would please ask that you stand, Sonja, Phyllis, Matt, Carol. You all have done a tremendous job in helping to get everything arranged. Thank you. With that, I'll turn it over to the Chancellor for final comments.
Well, we had hoped to have enough time for Dale to present a few more slides to us, but since we don't, I don't have any other comments other than thank you very much for being here. The June quarterly meeting will be hosted by Walter State Community College in Morristown, and we look forward to seeing you there, if not before. Thank you.
Thanks all. Meeting is adjourned.
Hey, Kevin.
Good. Well done, sir.